The Dart null safety beta has finally been released, and I'm super excited for it. And what we should do now is migrate our packages. So our Flutter and Dart packages can now already be migrated to null safety. And I can tell you, null safety is really awesome to work with, and the benefits are really awesome. If you haven't read it yet, I recommend you read through the announcement. It's very well written. It's a really good article. If you don't even know what Dart null safety is, I actually explained this already in February. So this is my Stack Overflow answer from over half a year ago on what null safety is. I explained all the concepts, and I was somewhat brief because it's just a Stack Overflow answer, right? It's still long, but if you want something comprehensive, you should really take a look at this one. This is really worth your read. Understanding null safety is a very detailed article, and it goes through everything. And after you read this, you'll really have an understanding of what null safety is, how it works. It even goes through the basics, right? What are non-nullable types and nullable types? And it goes through the awesome features, flow analysis. And so what is the package that I'm going to be migrating in this video? It is the funvas package. I'm actually going to migrate not only the package, but also the example in that package. So I'm really giving you the whole tour of how to migrate a package, going through the whole thing. And the reason I chose this one, it's because it's small. It doesn't do much. It allows you to draw these awesome canvas animations. I really like it, but it's really simple, right? You can create these animations. I post about them on Twitter if you're interested. And you can see this is a GIF or a GIF if you prefer that. And the package even allows you to export these, but that's part of the example package, which we're also going to migrate, right? The example app. So that's it. It has not been migrated yet, but we will do that, and we will do the full thing, and we will do it according to the migration guide. This is really useful, but it's not that detailed. What we will do in this video is really go through the whole thing very in detail, and I will use this as a reference to show you what needs to be done. So if we take a look at what we need to do as like prerequisites, we need to enable null safety, and null safety is enabled with Dart 2.12. So we need this SDK constraint. And if you look at the get Dart side, so dart.dev/get Dart, you can see what the current stable release is. And we can see that the current stable release is Dart 2.10, right? And we need 2.12. So the first thing that you need to do is run Flutter channel beta and Flutter upgrade if you want to migrate your packages right now and create a pre-release. Then, what is the first step that we need to do in migration? We need to wait. Isn't that awesome? Because everyone is lazy and everyone just wants to wait. Well, there's a really good reason behind it. I will briefly explain it. So you want to wait for your dependencies to be migrated first, because if you don't do that, then you're not going to benefit from the information that is added in the dependency during the migration, right? Because afterwards, a dependency has all this non-nullability information that you can use to migrate your package. And if the dependency doesn't have it, you can't benefit from it. You can't use it. And then you can also not use sound null safety. So you should really wait. So seriously, if possible, you should wait. And that is also why the first step in the migration is to check your dependencies. Let's see. In our case, let's just make sure that this is up to date. I'm not sure if it would be run otherwise. We can use the command here to check for null safety in our dependencies in the package, in the funvas package. And here we can see that all direct dependencies are up to date. And actually this would be colorful. It would be colored in green and red if we were using a Mac right now. But I can assure you, when I run this on a Mac, it is colored. But now we're just going to use these check marks instead, and we can see that the pedantic dependency we have has not been migrated to null safety, but their one is resolvable. So what we really want to do is just update this one to reflect that as well. The key one here is the latest. You want to make sure that every package that you depend on has a latest version with null safety enabled. And if that is the case, then you need to update all your dependencies to use these null safety versions, and then you can start to migrate. So we can run pub-get, and if we run the command again, we will see, yay, all your dependencies declare support for null safety. So now we can begin our migration. How does the migration work? Well, there's a tool for it. You can do it manually by hand, but you really don't want to do this, right? If you can, you should really use the migration tool. We will just spin it up quickly. It will spin up a web server, which will allow you to use this tool, which you can see here, to make migration way easier, because it can analyze on the fly and tell you what you need to do. I will go into the hint markers you can use in a second. So here we have the migration tool that we need to use we need to open in our browser. And what we can see here is 3 files. These 3 files are ready to be migrated to null safety, and it's small. I said it. I told you it's a small package. It only has 3 files, which is awesome for this video, for this demonstration. Where do you start? I would advise that you start where your leave nodes are. Basically the same way you start migration with packages, you migrate your dependencies first. And I know that the widget.dart file kind of depends on the painter. So I would just reasonably start at the painter. But it's definitely not necessary to have some order there. You can migrate it in a different order as well. So what do we see here? First of all, you will notice these gray boxes, and they just indicate that these types will now be non-nullable, right? The double is not a nullable double anymore, it's a non-nullable double, and the migration tool didn't change anything about it, right? It didn't change anything about it. The first thing that we notice that was changed, or that is a proposed edit that we can see here, is the num in this line the proposal is to make it nullable. And I agree. Why do I agree? It's a function that constructs the color, and the opacity is not required, which is why this is nullable. We could also add a hint like this. And then if we rerun it, it doesn't even propose it. It will now just do it because of this hint. This is one of the hint markers I just showed you in the migration guide. It's the non-nullable, the nullability hint. But what is this? It's adding a cast, which I definitely don't want to have added, because this would result in an error if this was an int, right? I want to be able to say, I just pass 1 for the opacity, and then it should be full opacity, like 1.0, right? Like this, it doesn't work. And now we have the first tricky situation, because we can't use the migration tool. There are no actions here. There are no actions we can perform. So what we want to do is we want to open this file, the painter.dart file, and we want to do it manually, right? The fix here is, no matter what the type is, no matter if it's int or double, I want to convert the num to a double. This will not result in an error because I'm using this function which can just do the conversion, and I'm not casting. And if I rerun from sources, by the way, what you can see here is the hint that the migration tool added. So that's how it works, right? So just saying, make sure that you have committed your code before you're doing this, but that is generally the case, right? If I rerun from sources, you can see that now It respects what I edited, like it respects the hint and what I edited, and it applies this. Next thing, the context and canvas are nullable. No, that's wrong, because I want to draw with the canvas, and if the canvas is null, I can't draw with it. So it should really not be null. So let's look at the edit details and trace the reason why this is null. And we can see, okay, it's because the field is not initialized. It's because the funvas dots underscore c, so the private canvas, is not initialized. That is why it's telling me that this canvas right here, the public one that just returns the private one, why this one needs to be nullable, because the other one, the field is never initialized. But I say this should not be nullable. If I do this and rerun from sources, it will say, okay, the hints are added, and now it will recognize, okay, this canvas and this context, they are now also non-nullable. That's the great thing about the migration tool, right? You change one thing and it recognizes what you changed and it analyzes again, and it can detect the non-nullability for you. However, this won't work because now it's non-nullable, but the field is never initialized. So we actually need to apply a different fix. I just did this for demonstration. The fix we actually need to apply is late here, because I know that down here in the custom painter, I am assigning the canvas before using it, before it can be used here. So I'm going to say that this will just be assigned later. However, it is in fact non-nullable. And if I now rerun from sources, we still have what we want, just a different fix, but it also recognizes this fix, that it added a late keyword due to a hint. The last thing in this file is just fine. We can see previously we used add required for this stuff, but now we use required, just required, so it's going to remove the add annotation, like just the add. So that's fine. So this file is done. Let's move to the next file. And it makes the key nullable. As you can see here, it makes the key nullable. That's what we want because the key is optional. Great. It takes away the annotation at. That's also what we want. And it makes these things that are only initialized in init state late. That is also what we want. However, again, there's one thing that the migration tool doesn't recognize. And that is the time is only assigned once. So this could be a final. And it doesn't even show me any actions for it. So I will need to do it manually again. I need to go to the widget file this time. And the hint I want to add is late final, because I know, here you go. I'll explain you why the migration tool did it. I will explain it to you. So the migration tool doesn't know that init state will only be called once, but I know it. Because I know it and I see that time is only assigned in init state, I can make it final. But the migration tool doesn't know it. But that should be it. We're done. I'm satisfied. I can apply the migration. And you should probably do another commit right now, because the migration tool will now remove all the hints. And also, for example, I changed this, right? It will remove it, right? If you're not satisfied with the migration, you might want to revert. And you might not want to revert to your previous state where you didn't do any of these adjustments. So just do a commit before it, okay? Just so you're on the safe side. So now the migration has been applied. What do we want to do now? Now that the migration has been applied, and obviously here are all the hint markers, by the way, which I showed you before, but I didn't explain them in detail because you probably know about how null safety works. This is the bang one on the expression, this is on the type, etc. So the next thing we want to do is analyze. We want to use static analysis. Let's see. What does it say? Okay, it will first of all say that there is an error in the example, and that is because the example depends on our package and we have not finished the migration yet. Or rather, the example depends on an older version. I'll show you in a second. Like just ignore the example one because you haven't like migrated the example yet. The other ones, they're just warnings or info, in fact, here. And this one is a really common one. You will see this a lot when migrating Flutter code because we don't need these assertions anymore, right? These non-null assertions, we don't need them anymore because the type is already non-nullable. So we can just remove these, which is really awesome. Like seriously, constructors are so much more fun with null safety. I'll just format, and then we're done with the migration of this package actually. The last thing you want to do is you want to make sure that the versions are correctly. So first of all, your SDK constraint has been updated. It was, as you can see, before it was 2.7.0, but now because we're using null safety, it used the latest beta version actually. The recommended constraint is this one. It will just say, okay, any pre-release or Dart version that has null safety enabled by default will work with the package. So this is the one you want to use. And then you want to indicate a breaking change. If I try to publish this now, I'm going to do a dry run. It is going to warn me that I'm not, right? It's saying that I'm about to publish a package that opts into null safety, and my previous version isn't opted in. But it could be that this is a breaking change. If we look at Pedantic, it actually didn't upgrade the major version. If Pedantic had a breaking change, it should have updated the major version, but Pedantic doesn't have any code. But you probably have code, and this is why you want to indicate a breaking change. Quick refresher on how it works. We'll skip to publish for that. Is if you're pre 1.0, indicating a breaking change works by incrementing the minor version. For me, this is that one, right? And then you want to add a pre-release because it's not instable yet. So you want to add a pre-release. So we have pre-release, this is the semantic versioning notation for that, null safety, and the first pre-release. And now I indicated a breaking change. If I run this again, I will not be warned anymore because I indicated the breaking change. And as you can see, I'm not warned anymore. I'm just warned that I should actually include a changelog entry, which I will do quickly. And this is what you should also do, of course. And these warnings are very useful. And you can say that you migrated to null safety. Right, so now there are no warnings anymore because I indicated a breaking change. It might be if you have something like a linter package that you don't need to indicate a breaking change, but generally you should do this, you should follow this. If you already have a major version, so 1.0 or later, then you should go to 2.0 or 3.0, you increment the major version. If you don't have it yet, you either increment to the first major version or you increment your minor version like I showed you. So this is what we want to do. Now in the Dart analysis, we still have the warnings in the example package. How do we get rid of those? Well, they shouldn't be there, so I'm just going to pop get, and now the example package will use the new version. Actually, I can show you something interesting. If I wouldn't use path here, right? If I would use the previous version, the 0.3.0, for example, 0.0.3, of course. And now if we wanted to migrate the example package now, this is equivalent to if we had not migrated it locally, outdated command. We will see that we have a direct dependency that is not updated to null safety yet. It actually shows that there is the null safety version available already because it's already published. I wonder how that got there. And What we can do now is we can just include it from path, because that's what we just migrated to null safety, and then that will be migrated to null safety. The other one we want to adjust is pedantic. Again, we upgrade it to the null safety version. And now we can run the tool again, and it will show us that there is actually one dependency that does not have any version with null safety available. And that's the worst case for you, and that is when you should not do migration. You should probably create an issue or create a PR on that repository and ask for a null safety migration, or do it yourself, because you really want all dependencies to be migrated to null safety. Here it is fine because it's only a dev dependency, which means that our example will still run with sound null safety. Only our tests will not run with sound null safety. And previously, I skipped the test step. This is also something interesting. I skipped it in the funvas package because it's simple on purpose. There are no tests in this package. It's simple on purpose. But in general, you want to test your packages, especially your packages, right? You want to have tests. And because you have tests, because you do what is recommended, right? Because you have tests, you want to also migrate them. And you can, in fact, do incremental migration. So you could, for example, say that your tests while you're migrating are still, for example, still use Dart 2.9 while you're migrating, just so you can migrate your tests separately. This is explained in the Unsound null safety page if you're interested in that article. But you also want to migrate those tests, and that's how you could just do it incrementally. However, these tests in this repo, which is no test, by the way, it's just exporting, which is also why I think it's fine for demonstration, for completeness sake, to show you the migrated package. I can delete this so we can see it later, because it will export this animation when we run the tests. It's not really tests, it just uses the test framework to create screenshots, which is really cool. So all that talk just to say, I'm going to ignore the warning that's going to show up if I say Dart migrate. Because if I want to migrate this using the migration tool, it will warn me, okay, hey, you have a dependency that has not been migrated yet. You better do that. And in order to do that, we just skip the import check. As I said, you don't want to do this generally. I'm doing it for demonstration and because it's only a dev dependency. And there are no tests in here, it's only exporting. So again, we go to the migration tool, and this time I will kind of speed through it a bit more, because I already explained most of it. So here, the time, I know that it's only assigned once, but the migration tool doesn't know it because it doesn't know that setup all only runs once. So I can go here and mark this as late final. I rerun from sources, and it will be applied. Nice. Now I go to the viewer and I see these changes are the ones that we had before, and they're all fine. Everything is fine here. That's really cool. Same here. And now there are some weird things. What are those? These are casts that should not be made. I have no idea. But the migration tool isn't guaranteed to perfectly migrate your code. That's why you do static analysis to see if you have any errors. So we're going to fix this after migration. This is really interesting. This is what we didn't see before. It's a non-null assertion on an expression, and it's actually justified. Because if we look at the reasoning, it will go through lerp. For example, lerp double returns a nullable double. So it returns double or null because the inputs are also nullable. So that's interesting, right? It makes sense. However, because we know that our inputs are non-null, we can use this bang operator, the assertion. We say bang, this is definitely not null, and that's why this is fine. This is correct migration. Here's some weird cast again, makes no sense. So in 1 and 3 we have weird casts, and in 5 as well, but other than that everything is fine. So I do a commit now, then I apply the migration, and after the migration has been applied, I want to run Flutter analyze in order to fix it, right? Oh no, stuff is wrong. I'm just going to use the analysis tab. First of all, this doesn't make any sense because the curve was cast to double. It makes no sense, right? But the analysis tool, as I said, it isn't guaranteed to do everything correctly. Here are unnecessary casts, just remove them. Here's what we had before, right? We don't need the assertions for null and the widget constructors anymore. And then the other one was in 1.dart, this weird one with the double and the offset, which makes no sense if you're thinking about it. It's first casting an offset to a double and then casting it to an offset again. Really weird, but it's fine because we know how to fix it, and that's why we can manually fix it, and the migration tool did most of the hard work for us. Because this isn't even that little, right? This isn't even that little code. It's quite a bit in the example package at least. And this one, you just need to know it. It changed to test executable. This doesn't really have anything to do with the null safety. It just changed with the Dart version that it cannot be called main anymore, and this is really a Flutter test thing. This is used to export the animations, which will be interesting in a second. However, first of all, we format, and now we can test if it worked, because we have successfully migrated the example package. That's pretty awesome, I would say. And it was really quite a bit of code. And if you think about it, all of this migration would not have worked if we had not first migrated our funvas package. So the package, if we had not migrated it first, all of this wouldn't have worked because we would have needed to say this everywhere, right? Because the canvas could have been nullable. And if we had not done that manual late on this canvas, right, then again, we would have needed all these nullable things, but the migration tool knows that now it's not necessary because we did the migration in the right order. And now we can run the example app, right? We can just run it, and it will run fine because we have sound null safety. The only dependency that was faulty here is a def dependency that is this one, and this def dependency is not used when running the app normally. So we will have sound null safety when running this app. And will it work? Magic moment. It seems like it. These examples work. Do the tweets, funvas animations work? They seem to be working. Pretty cool, huh? So everything seems to be working perfectly, which I think is quite amazing. We did the whole migration successfully, at least the package migration and example app migration. Now the last thing to do would be this exporting aka tests in the example package. In order to do that, I changed the directory. And I can't use the shell script because I'm not on a Mac right now. If I try to do this, you will see something that you might actually see if you try to migrate your Flutter app right now, because dependencies might not have been migrated to null safety. As I said, in that case, you should wait. But if you don't, like I did, you will not be allowed to run it by default. What you can do in that case, and I tweeted about this, is you can say, if you want to run the app, Flutter run with no sound null safety. So you want to use unsound null safety. So my recommendation is you, first of all, read through the article to understand unsound null safety. And if you really understand it and say, okay, in my case, I want to run with unsound null safety, then you can do it. And they actually added this section to the article here. I think I'm not sure if it's because of my tweet, but they definitely added the section later. You can use no sound null safety, but as I said, you should wait preferably. So this also applies to tests, which means that we can say Flutter test without sound null safety. There we go. We would also need to update it here. And you can see it runs. It does run. Everything works. So we did the whole migration and it's pretty awesome. Especially if you write null safe code, you know that it's awesome, right? Because it's just way more enjoyable to write null safe code, to work with that. And what the script does, by the way, if you're interested in that, because we did the whole migration, now you watched through the whole thing, it creates this animation directory and it exports one of the animations frame by frame. So you can assemble a GIF or GIF from it. And that's pretty awesome, I think. And it's also pretty awesome that this now works with null safe code, but remember, it's not sound. That comes later when that package has been migrated. Ideally, when the null safety feature is released on the stable Flutter channel, we want to have sound null safety everywhere, right? So we walked through the whole thing. Pretty amazing, isn't it? And we are ready to publish it now. Right now, we would say Flutter pub publish or Dart publish. And now I can publish it. I will do it very quickly. And wow, if we reload, amazing. It has already published it. What a coincidence that it did it this fast. And if we take a look at it now, it's now null safe. You can find all of them that have already been upgraded to support null safety. For example, Path, because it has the pre-release version, Pedantic has the pre-release version, and so on and so forth. So now I can only say, you made it. Welcome to null safety. And if you want to see some of the stuff I do, follow me on Twitter. Maybe you can do it. Anyway, you watch me for this long. This means that you can learn anything. Creative creator, or maybe not. Out.